I mean, the whole thing about the observation that the skin was useful in telling that there was rejection happening, or there was no rejection when something else was happening with the patient, was driven by patients who made the observation. And they came to us and go, look, my skin's got a rash, or my skin's going red. So it wasn't us who made the observation. It was the patients who had it, in whom we'd put it on in order to expand their abdomen so we could fit the new bowel in. And so they were the ones who said, oh, my skin's gone red. What's going on? Or I've got this rash. What's going on? And so then it was really their discovery. And then so they drove us to pursue it, to try and understand what was going on. And it was also their discovery that it was useful, because they were the ones who told us, look, it's great, because if I feel rough, I can look at my arm or look at my tummy, and I know I'm okay, or I know my transplant's okay, and I feel rough because I drank too much last night, or I ate the wrong food, or I'm catching the flu. And it was very reassuring for them, and they were the drivers of that, and that's really what inspired us to pursue this topic. So we had lots of feedback from patients, and we used all that feedback and collated it to help us design this study, and to refine it as we've gone along. One of the things we were very worried about was the fact that we were changing transplant from something that's buried. So you could go to the hospital, have a transplant, and when you leave hospital, you're cured. And there's no sign of it apart from the surgical scars. And then by putting on a patch of skin, suddenly you were changing that and making your transplant visible. And there was we had a lot of anxiety and concern about that. And so we specifically went out and asked patients afterwards and said, what do you think about the patch of skin? Does it bother you? Does it feel like you? Does it feel like somebody else? Even if there is a color mismatch, or the skin was very obvious, how does that affect your thinking? If it's from a different sex to you, etc. And we were very surprised about the responses, because as a non-transplant patient, I'd think, oh, it's a bit cringy or a bit weird, right? But actually, because you're fundamentally so unwell that you need a transplant in order to survive and get better, I think your mindset changes, and you're much more accepting of what you need in order to survive. And the responses were that patients really liked it. They liked being able to self-check. They felt that it made them much more aware of the gift of the donation that they'd been given, and that they felt more emotionally thankful and attached to their donor. They tell me that at the anniversary of their transplant, that it is sometimes more significant than their original birthday, and having the visible aspect of that transplant makes them even more grateful. Interestingly, they don't feel that the patch of skin belongs to the donor. So they adopt it as their own, and they tell me that it's them. So even if it's a different color or a different texture, or different in some way from themselves, they psychologically adopt it, and it's theirs, and so they feel this is me, and it's entirely theirs. And I found that really interesting. Getting back to your question about engaging with the public and patients, we've been out and spoken to groups who are not transplant patients to see what they think of the idea, and they intuitively grasp it. It seems very logical that, of course, if you take a patch of skin from the same donor as the organ and you can't see the organ, but you can see the skin, well, why wouldn't they be correlated? And why wouldn't you be able to use one as the canary in the coal mine to warn you of the one you can't see? So for them, it's completely logical. And they go, well, why hasn't anyone done that before? I mean, it's like, why are you doing this study? It's so obvious. And for patients, we've had the same response because it's intuitively logical that this should be effective and work. However, we do have to do the study. We can't make assumptions, and we do have to test it properly to make sure that we are really helping patients. And so I'm very grateful for you listening, being interested, and please ask me if you have any questions.